Hello, my sweet potato wedges. In this video, we will cover all the basics that you need to know about passive constructions. We will focus on the difference between active and passive and how you can transform an active sentence into its passive equivalent. So let's get started. First, we're going back to basics, because what is actually the difference between active and passive? I will illustrate this with two example sentences. In active sentences or in the active voice, the person or thing doing the action is always the subject of your sentence. So it is very straightforward. The person or thing undergoing or receiving the action, on the other hand, is what we call our object. In Dutch, this is your leidend voorwerp. So in the example sentence, the professor teaches the students. The professor is your subject, doing the action of the teaching. The students, on the other hand, just undergo the action or receive the action, and they are the object of your sentence. Passive sentences have a complete opposite structure. Here, the subject does not really do the action, but rather undergoes it, and the person or thing doing the action can be mentioned in the form of an agent. So, in the example sentence, the students are taught by the professor. The students are the subject, undergoing or receiving the action. By the professor is then turned into an agent, and the agent actually does the action of the verb, the teaching here. If we contrast these two sentences, you can immediately see that when transforming into the passive, some changes have taken place. For example, firstly, the object from the active sentence is now the subject of the passive sentence. Secondly, the subject of your active sentence has been transformed into an agent. And lastly, we can also see that some changes have taken place when it comes to the verb. In the rest of this video, I will list all the changes that can take place if you want to transform something into a passive, and also some special cases. You can also find all of these rules in your syllabus. First of all, let's focus on the differences in verb forms. In the column on the left, we have all active sentences in different tenses, and in the column on the right, we have the same passive equivalent each time in the same tense. What really is important to note is that the active-passive difference doesn't have anything to do with tense. You can put any tense that you like into the active or passive. As you might have already noticed, the general rule to turn your verb into a passive is to use the auxiliary to be, followed by the past participle of the verb you want to use. Always put to be in the same tense as the one that is used in your active sentence. So, if you want to transform someone has invited Helen into the passive, first put to be in the same tense. In this case, the tense is the present perfect. So this will then become, for to be, has been, and then you add the past participle invited, and then you have successfully transformed your verb. The second basic rule we have already covered. The direct object of your active sentence always becomes your new subject in the passive sentence. So in this case, the thief will function as your new subject. However, you can also have an indirect object in your sentence, which is the same as in Dutch, meewerkend voorwerp. This one can also be used as a new subject to your sentence. If you have one, the indirect object is even more preferred to use as a new subject than the direct object. So in this example sentence, for example, John is the one who actually gets the book, so he can function as a new subject of our passive sentence, with as an end result, John was given a new book. Sometimes you might have a prepositional phrase in your active sentence, such as to him in this sentence. This can also become the subject of your new sentence. Pay attention, however, to the placement of the preposition. Don't put it in front of your sentence, so don't say to him was being listened or something like that, but leave it at the end of your sentence. Adverbs of manner sometimes change places when going from active to passive. In the active sentence, for example, the adverb well is put at the end of the sentence. In its passive equivalent, however, two options are possible. It can stay in end position, or it can also be placed before the past participle. Both are correct options. We have already covered the general rule of how to transform an active verb form into a passive one. If your active sentence, however, contains a modal verb, you need to follow some special rules. Examples of modal verbs are might, can, could, should, or as in this example sentence, must. Always use the modal verb in your passive sentence as well, followed by what we call a passive infinitive, which is always be, just in its infinitive, followed by the past participle of the verb you want to use. So must look actually in passive form becomes must be looked. Lastly, if you still want to mention in the passive sentence who actually does the action, you can create an agent using the preposition by. However, only do this if it is necessary to mention. In this example sentence, Rubens is pretty essential information to the sentence, so you can create an agent for it. This is, however, not always the case. If you, for example, compare it with the following sentence, someone opened the door, creating an agent by someone does not really add any useful information, so you don't have to include it in your sentence. So the end result is just simply the door was opened. On pages 46 and 47, you can find 2 exercises about the basic rules that I've just explained. In exercise A, you need to turn active sentences into correct passive ones. But the sentence is already created, so you just need to complete it with the correct form of the verb. Make sure that you keep the same tense. Exercise B is a little bit more challenging since you need to transform the whole sentence. First, look for a new subject and create an agent if necessary. Don't forget then to transform your verb form as well, keeping the same tense. The correction key for both exercises is available on SmartSchool. These were all the basic rules about the passive. In the next video, things will become a little bit more challenging with some special types of passive sentences. So hopefully I will see you in the next video as well. Bye!